Welcome to the Western Bell podcast series with talks on traditional spiritual teaching and its application in the world today. The intention of this series is to offer something useful for those who are drawn to study themselves and engage practice on the spiritual path. New talks are posted twice each month. The content of the talks is for informational purposes only and not to provide any kind of counseling, medical, or professional advice. This podcast is titled Eating Impressions, Staying Put in Your Vibratory Atmosphere. The talk was given by Red Hawk on November 22nd, 2025 via Zoom. Red Hawk is an acclaimed poet and the author of 13 books, including Self-Observation, Self-Remembering, The Way of the Wise Woman, Return to the Mother, and Book of Lamentations. In this presentation, he speaks about impressions as one of the 3 being foods described in the Gurdjieff work. He notes that impressions are all energetic phenomena that the senses pick up, which can serve a crucial transformational function when taken in consciously and eaten. Red Hawk refers to teachings of Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Lee Lozowick, Mr. E.J. Gold, Arnaud Desjardins, Jesus, Don Juan from the Castaneda literature, and George Gurdjieff, and to some of the writings of Gurdjieff's students, including Madame de Salzman, P.D. Ouspensky, and Maurice Nicole. For those interested, it is possible to participate in some parts of the experiential exercises that were engaged in during the live presentation while listening to the podcast. If there is benefit in this talk for you, please consider sharing the link to it or writing a review on social media or on one of the podcast platforms. Red Hawk.
Thank you very much for coming. Those of you who are here, I'm grateful. So I begin each time I do a public presentation with the law of invocation. And that law was taught by the good master Jesus in this way: where 2 or more are gathered in my name, there will I be also. And when a God-realized being uses the pronouns my and I, we can understand that it's the divine speaking through that medium. So the law of invocation is a way of summoning the help of the divine. Whatever the divine is, we don't know. We have names for it, but the names aren't the thing itself. We know that it is a creative force. And I like to call it conscious awareness. The universe is conscious and aware. At any rate, I'm of the school of Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, the divine God-realized being from Tiruvannamalai, India. And Mr. Lee Lozowick was his spiritual son, and I am of Mr. Lee's school. So the name we use, or the God-realized being for us, is Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar. The law of invocation says any name of any God-realized being summons the divine. In this case, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar. So I do this invocation using his name and Mr. Lee's. Yogi Rama Sarat Kumar. Yogi Rama Sarat Kumar. Yogi Rama Sarat Kumar. Jai Guru Raya. Anjaneya Kepali. Anjaneya Kepali. Anjaneya Kepali. Jai Guru Raya. Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Jai Guru Raya. What this law does for us is to create a divinely inspired invocational work chamber. So there is help here now. And those beings whom we summon, this is a food source for them. There is a radiation from this chamber of vibratory energy, which is food. And the subject of this talk tonight is that kind of food created by certain levels of vibratory energy. The higher the vibration, the finer and more refined the food. The divine feeds on a very rarefied, refined energy, not coarse and crude and low vibrations, but very high, fine vibration. And this kind of chamber can create and does create that radiation. So I want to begin at the beginning because that's what I am, a beginner. So when I do any kind of service like this, I have to begin at the beginning. Otherwise, I get lost very quickly. And to begin at the beginning means that I begin with the body. So if you wish to follow along and work with me now in this chamber, we begin with both feet on the floor and an erect posture. The erect posture is extremely important. Zen Buddhism calls erect posture the awakened form. It's not a mechanical posture. In my daily life, in the mammal world, the mechanical world, the unconscious world, the habit world, my postures are mechanical and they are different slouches and variations, a small retinue of postures, each of which is accompanied by a mood. Posture invokes mood, and mood invokes attitude. So when I deliberately and consciously engage the spine and straighten it, not rigid, but relaxed and upright, I am aligned in a way that in my ordinary life I'm not. My centers are aligned. And I am aligned with a descending divine love current, which animates all life forms. This constantly descending divine love current is what makes life on earth. I have consciously and intentionally aligned myself so that I can receive. I want to read you a quote about posture. This is from Madame de Salzmann, who was one of Mr. Gurdjieff's most senior disciples and the one who carried on his work after his death. This is her quote on posture. At any moment, we each have a particular posture, an attitude we cannot avoid. The postures assumed by the body are always the same and provoke corresponding postures or attitudes in the mind and the feeling that are also the same. I am enclosed in a subjective world of habitual attitudes, but I do not see this. I am not even aware of which parts are tense or relaxed. The body has its repertoire of postures that imprison me. I have to find a position, inner and outer, that will free me from my attitudes and allow me to emerge from sleep, to open to another dimension, another world, unquote. Both feet on the floor, erect posture. And now it's possible for me to move attention out of the head brain and down to the solar plexus and the abdomen, to reposition my center of gravity so that I sense I am from lower down in the body, not trapped and imprisoned in the head brain. This is called will of attention. And the exercise that we're doing is called self-remembering. And it's part of the practice of self-remembering, self-observation, the practice of presence. I wish to be present, to receive the help from the divine which is available here, now. So I'm aware of where there is any tension in the body. I become aware of the sensation of breath. And with my center of gravity lower down in the body, I allow the breath to fill the abdomen. Not just shallow, tense chest breathing, but full breath in the abdomen. So that on each breath, the abdomen goes out with the inhalation and in with the exhalation. And if I'm very sensitive and relaxed and attentive, I might be aware that on the exhalation, there is a kind of finer energy that I sense in the body, a kind of charge I feel, very light, very delicate. There's the inhalation, there's the exhalation, and there's a radiation. When I'm breathing consciously and aware in the body, this allows the body to extract from the air. The work calls it a being food. Air is a food. It allows the body to extract from that air finer substances, refined substances that are not available to the body when I am unconscious and mechanical in my breath. But as I'm speaking, I'm trying to remain aware of my feet on the floor and the breath coming in and out, not forcing the breath or gasping and going on to the next word, but speaking more slowly. And I sense this radiation, which old ancient schools called prana. When I breathe consciously and with the right posture, this allows the body to operate at its highest functional level as an energy transformation instrument, able to extract from the air this prana, this finer food, and radiate it to the cellular structure of the body. In this way, with continued practice of this presence, the body is able to create a second body, a higher being body. Some call it an astral body. I call it a work body or a conscience body. And when fully formed and developed, that body can house attention and presence when the physical body dies. So I am creating a container in which the being, I am, can remain. And one might call that surrounding atmosphere an aura, a vibratory electrical field which surrounds the body. I choose to call it the being's atmosphere. I'm quoting from Mr. Gurdjieff now. Sensation is the atmosphere of being. No growth of being will take place without a prior growth in sensation. A sensation is not only of a man's skin, but of the entire inner structure, which includes the skeleton, muscles, and organs as well. In lifting his arm, everything on the other side of intention is sensation. A man must be able to radiate particles of free attention from the moment an intention enters his bloodstream and neurological system. The work on sensation is the infrastructure of being, unquote. So this sensation of atmosphere, this field which surrounds me, is constantly being interrupted, going out to hook onto other impressions and in identification, and it doesn't get fed.
Have a dozen different sets in the door, all kinds in the fire exit area. Nothing a criminal records, Captain.
We got one clear shot here. Blow it up, copy it, rush it to...
Sorry, Red Hawk, someone was unmuted.
Thank you, that's an impression. Do I have a reaction, or can I remain in my atmosphere, still, quiet, and allow that impression, that energy, all impressions are energy, to pass unimpeded, without identification or reaction, without judgment, pass through the body and be transformed by the body as food. Whoever that was, I thank them for that opportunity. It was an excellent opportunity to work and to practice exactly what we are speaking of. So I'm aware of my feet on the floor. My spine is erect. I'm aware of my spine. The spine is a magnificent instrument. It is an intelligence vastly superior to the intelligence of the head brain. It operates the whole autonomous nervous system. It operates all of the organ systems, the muscular systems, the skeletal structure. And it is many thousands of times faster in its response than the head brain, which is slow, always operating from the past and extrapolating to the present, projecting. But when I find myself in the proper posture, the mind becomes more cooperative, less urgent and chattering, quieter, ready to respond when asked for information, allowing me to absorb and assimilate air and impressions. So I'm going to read about atmosphere now. This is a quote from Mr. Lee. Quote, "Divine influence is like a field that is strongest at the center, but which extends indefinitely. Such a field acts on any particle that comes within range only to the extent that the particle carries a charge." Unquote. I'm going to stop right there. So the divine can act on me as a particle in this field if I carry a charge. And this particle is only charged when I am present in the field. When I am identified and habitual and mechanical, the screen is dark. There is no charge. But when I find myself present as attention in the body, aware, alert, conscious, the field, which is the divine, is able to act on this particle, which is I am. And that action of the divine causes changes in the particle, which is I am. I continue with the quote from Mr. Lee now. Quote, "A magnetic field does not affect a piece of plastic or glass. For example, if the particle is not charged, it will not be subject to the laws which govern the field. The field will seem not to exist at all. Divine influence operates under this same principle. It is always available, but is active in our lives only to the extent that we put ourselves under the laws that govern that particular field. Our practices are the conditions under which we are subject to the laws of divine influence. When we fulfill the conditions, we give ourselves the charge that is available to the master's influence. We make ourselves vulnerable and attractive to this help. Let's see, I'm going to issue a spoiler alert before I go any further. I'm going to say a couple of things about myself so that you aren't under any illusions about the speaker. I said at the beginning, I am a beginner. I'm not an expert. I'm not an advanced practitioner. I am a beginning. It's taken me 40 years in the work to reach the beginning of this work. Only now do I feel that I may be a beginner. I'm also a hopeless idiot. I use that term not as a put down, but intentionally and consciously, placing myself on the scale of idiots that Mr. Gurdjieff brought to this world from the Sufis. Each person chooses her own idiot, which best corresponds to her nature and her practice. I find myself most like the hopeless idiot because I'm slow to learn. I'm very resistant to help. I tend to do the same things over and over and pray for different results. I am the kind of practitioner that Zen Buddhism calls hammer on the rock. In order for me to get something, to understand something, that takes a great shock, and oftentimes repeated shocks. So having said these things, I want to issue a warning to you that you must not believe me. Please don't. Please do not trust the speaker. That would put the speaker and you in great danger. If something is said in this chamber which resonates in you, vibrates in you, strikes a sympathetic chord, at that point, one begins to investigate and verify for oneself. Accept nothing on the word of another, not even if it's the good master Jesus or Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar or Buddha. Only when I have verified it from my own experience can it be true for me. Not a parrot repeating somebody else's words, but speaking from my own experience, which I wish to do. And my morning prayer every morning is, beloved God, please let me do no harm. Please let me mislead no one, including myself. So ruthless self-honesty is called for in my position. It's a position I didn't ask for and would never want, but Mr. Lee has placed me in the position of speaking for the practice of presence, self-remembering, self-observation. And so I do that reluctantly and carefully. And to protect yourself, please do not trust me. Protect me. Please do not believe me, but find out for yourself by verifying for yourself anything which sounds true to you. Make it your own truth. I am in this work because I've seen certain things beyond doubt about myself. And so I remain in this work. I have seen beyond a doubt that I cannot remember myself, that I'm constantly being lost in thought and emotion, in impressions, in identification. So now I speak about impressions. What are impressions? Well, impressions are simply everything. Impressions are energy, because the world is only energy. Everything in this world is an energetic configuration vibrating at a certain rate. The lower, the slower the vibrations, the more the appearance of solidity. The higher and finer the vibrations, the less obvious they are, the less they can be seen, only sensed or felt, experienced, but not known, only experienced, which is the case with our Creator, with this God we speak of. It can not be known, it can be experienced, and it can be experienced only in the present, because this creative energy, this life force, is only available as a present phenomenon. It doesn't exist in the past. Everything in the past is dead. It doesn't exist in the future. Everything in the future is not yet alive. So the only place that help is available, real help, is when I am present. Impressions are all of the energetic phenomenon that the senses pick up from the environment, the five senses. Impressions are all thoughts. Impressions are all emotions. Impressions are all sensations, are all muscular tension, skeletal, structural sensations. All are impressions because everything is energy. Impressions are energy. They are vibratory energy which enters into the human biological instrument. The work teaches us there are three being foods, foods which feed the being and allow it to evolve and grow. The being has two aspects, presence and attention. I am is presence and attention. You are presence and attention. I am presence and attention. Briefly in a human body, which is a mammal body. The work teaches that the earth is a school for beings or souls. And the work teaches that it's a school for unfinished, incomplete souls. An experiment that consciousness is engaged in to see if it's possible for a being with help to complete itself, to know itself, and to become an able and useful servant of the laws of the divine. So the work teaches there are three foods. The first is physical food. We take it into the body. It goes through a certain process of being transformed. And the body then extracts from that food certain energy, which it uses for its survival. But that food can't be broken down further into more refined energy unless and until help is given to it. And the work teaches us the second being food is air. When air is combined with physical food, it allows the physical food to be broken down further and refined further, and finer elements extracted, which then become being food, as well as food for the body. And this finer energy gives the body much, much more energy than it's used to when it only gets the result of the first digestion. The work teaches that there are three being foods: physical food, air, and impressions. Of these three, impressions serves a very crucial function. To take in impressions consciously, intentionally, in the present in the body, with the right posture, sensing the breath, sensing the whole body, and keeping the body relaxed. Impressions taken in consciously in this way allow the body to extract from the air its finer elements, a refined food which we call prana. And it's able to extract from the impressions a very refined energy, which it radiates to the cellular structure and allows the body to begin the work of creating a higher being body, a second body, an astral body, a work body, I call it, a body of conscience. But I am in a mammal body. So here's the syllogism. 1, all mammals are herd animals. 2, humans are mammals. 3, therefore, humans are herd animals. And this is absolutely true of humans on the mechanical scale. we don't think for ourselves, we follow the herd. And we are constantly looking for an alpha male or female to lead us and guide us. And we will do as we are told, and we don't think for ourselves. And you see this enacted everywhere. You turn on the television, and you don't have to go very long to see herd animals believing anything, no matter how absurd, and doing as they're told by the alpha leader. Only when I see my real situation do I begin to wish for something more. I quote Mr. E.J. Gold. Now, quote, "The reason that people keep themselves in the primate realm, that is the mammal realm, is because they don't have to take real responsibility there. In the primate or mammal realm, there's no real responsibility, and that's why people cling to it," unquote. I don't want to take responsibility for my life. I want other people to do that for me. I want to blame others for my situation. I want to blame others. I want to excuse myself. I want to justify my own behavior. So the work teaches that Earth is a school for unfinished souls, incomplete. How do I know that? How can I verify that for myself? That I am not complete. That I cannot do by myself. That I'm incapable of acting on my own as an individuality. But I'm driven constantly by forces external to me. Well, I can see it if I practice self-observation even a little. I see that I can't remember myself. When I see that I can't remember myself for very long before I'm distracted and identified with the incoming impressions or impressions arising from inside, I already know something crucially important about myself. That I am as a being weak and not fully formed, and I am unable to do anything about it. I need help. And I see, even more frightening, I drift in and out of consciousness constantly. One moment I'm conscious, and the next moment I'm not conscious. I'm unconscious, not aware of the body at all. Lost in thought, lost in emotion, lost in tension. And when I'm not conscious, there are a multitude of small I's, each calling themselves me, I, that compose this so-called self. And each of those I's has its own agenda. It doesn't care about love, about relationship. It doesn't care about God. It doesn't even know the existence of God. It doesn't care about this work. These I's have one goal only, that is the realization of their agenda. And all of those I's are I want. I want. And when I am identified, which I am often, with one of those I's, and I'm not conscious, these I's speak for me in my name, and they act for me in my name, and they do things which I would never wish to do when I was conscious. They do harm. They harm the body, and they harm others. They harm relationships. And they do not care as long as they get what they want. Mr. Gurdjieff called this the terror of the situation. I am under the control of madmen, a whole asylum full of them, each calling themselves I. And they speak and act in my name. And what keeps me there is the law of identification. And I begin to understand more about the laws which are governing me. Mr. Gurdjieff, in his magnum opus, Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, speaks of what he calls the 5 being Obligonian strivings. In much of that book, Mr. Gurdjieff hides his teaching using a vocabulary that he invented. One has to dig for the definitions and find them and hold on to them. But here he is pretty open about what he means by the 5 being, that's I am, Obligonian, and we can see that as obligations, strivings. That is, each of us as a being strive to act upon 5 being obligations. The 3rd being obligation is the conscious striving to know ever more and more concerning the laws of world creation and world maintenance. We have enacted the law of invocation. That's one of the laws. I've just identified the law of identification, which is the law which maintains my sleep, my enslavement. It's how the eyes survive. But when I begin to find out about this work on self, work with others, and work for the work, I become aware of a law which is called the law of reciprocal maintenance. The law of reciprocal maintenance means that God feeds me in the form of impressions, food, and air, and physical food. And I, in turn, if I do my work, can feed God. I can feed the being, which is I am. I can feed the earth, which is above me in scale. And I can feed all those beings above me in scale all the way to our Creator by allowing the body to operate at its highest function as an energy transformation instrument. I take in impressions. I do not identify with them. I allow them to pass through the body unimpeded. The body is able to act at its highest function as an energy transformer. It extracts from those impressions a refined, very refined energy, part of which stays with the being and feeds it and allows it to evolve. The greater part radiates out from the body into the atmosphere, into the field of energy, which is the universe, and travels up the ray of creation, first to the earth, to beings above us in scale on the angelic level, all the way to our Creator. I am fed and I feed. And in this particular configuration we find ourselves in now, tonight, this chamber serves as a food source. And as I said that, I felt a kind of sensation in my body of a very fine energy. My feet are on the ground. My spine is erect. I'm aware of my breath. I am sensing the body. If I'm not conscious of the body, I'm not conscious. I'm identified. And it's identification which is the great problem. I'm going to read the 4th being, Obligonian striving, because it's life-changing if I understand it. It's astonishing. The 4th is, quote, the striving from the beginning of their existence to pay for their arising and their individuality as quickly as possible. So I'm going to stop there, interrupt. We must pay for our birth. That's what the work requires of me, that I pay as quickly as possible for my arising, meaning my birth, and my individuality as quickly as possible. So the question becomes, how do I pay? Conscious labor and intentional suffering, presence and attention in the body. By being present, I pay. I radiate that payment, that food, part of which belongs to the being, and the great part belongs to this God that we speak of. Another spoiler alert, I talk a lot about God because I'm an only God kind of guy. I confess that freely to you that I'm an only God guy. Yogaram Swarat Kumar gave two astonishing, profound, foundational teachings. The first, only God. That means there's nothing else but God, only God. He wasn't the first great God-realized being to give that teaching. Many, many, many God-realized beings have given that teaching. There's only God, there's nothing else. There's only God. All right, then objective reason began to work in me on that teaching. It's an astonishing teaching. And so I linked it with the teaching from that good master Jesus, who defined God this way, quote, God is love, unquote. What I reasoned that to mean is that in the human reality, God manifests as love. And further, love is the language our Creator uses to communicate with its creation. So to extrapolate further from the teaching of Yogaram Swarat Kumar and that good master Jesus, if there's only God and God is love, then there is only the love of God. All life forms, all forms in this world, and the world itself is composed of the love of God. That's all there is. And that's the law. And then I found this teaching, this beautiful teaching from Paula Darcy, which says, God comes to us disguised as our life. Our life is God manifesting in the form of Red Hawk or Bob Moore. You are the love of God manifest as this form. That led me to further reasoning. All right, we are being given the practice of self-remembering and self-observation in order to reveal to myself what in me prevents the love of God, which I am, from manifesting openly, always and everywhere and with everyone. And when I see that the ego structure, which I call self, resists manifesting as the love of God, I begin to suffer. And that's when the work calls intentional suffering. And it's conscience then which begins to awaken and suffer, because conscience is the love of God in me and in you. And when I disobey conscience, which is a still very subtle feeling, some people call it a voice and say they hear conscience. I don't have that experience, so I don't know if that's accurate or not, because in me, conscience doesn't speak. It only manifests as a feeling. And when I do not follow its urging, it suffers in me, and the feeling is remorse. That's intentional suffering. When I do not follow the urging of the love of God, which is my basic nature is the love of God. Loving kindness and forgiveness, that's how it manifests in this world. The love of God manifests as loving kindness and forgiveness in this world. When I do anything else, it suffers. All right, so I'm going to read you the fourth Obligonian striving now. The whole thing. I interrupted. Quote, the striving from the beginning of their existence to pay for their arising and their individuality as quickly as possible, in order afterwards to be free to lighten as much as possible the sorrow of our common Father, unquote. I quote, to be free to lighten as much as possible the sorrow of our common Father, unquote. My behavior causes our common Father to suffer when I refuse to follow the urgings of conscience, which is the love of God or the will of God in me. It is this so-called God which suffers in me as remorse. And remorse changes my heart. It has changed my heart. It continues to change my heart. And change of heart is the only true change. Change of habit is superficial. Change of mind is superficial. Change of heart is lasting change. If you want to learn more about yourself and who you are and why you're here than any other action, practice loving kindness and forgiveness and make that your life's practice, as I do. My life's aims are loving kindness and forgiveness. Those are my aims, my large aims. I have smaller individual aims, which help me from day to day, week to week. One of them is working on my self-importance, thinking I know something, my arrogance. Another is just seeing my fear and how it interferes with radiating the love of God with everyone, everywhere, all the time. I'm quoting from Madame de Salzman, quote, "On a cosmic scale, man plays an important role on the earth. Without him, certain forces cannot act and cannot maintain an equilibrium. But we do not see this, we do not know it. And consequently, we do not produce the force that could create a relation with other cosmic energies in ourselves. What is necessary in us and around us is the creation of a certain level of energy and attention that resists surrounding influences and does not let itself deteriorate," unquote. That means I don't identify with the impressions as they're received. I allow the body to transform them, and I stay out of the way. I stay consciously passive, intentionally passive, inside, not identifying with the emotions or the thoughts as they arise, not identifying with the impressions that come in from outside, but breathing, watching, feeling, breathing, relaxing, assimilating, allowing the body to do its work, and I do my work, which is to not interfere with the will of God, to not interfere with the love of God. I'm reading now from Master Arnaud Desjardins. Sarvam Anam is the quote from the Upanishads, one of the oldest extant religious texts available to human beings. And it means everything is food. Everything is food. Everything. It doesn't allow for, some things are and some things aren't. Everything is food. And I quote him now, "Everything is food. If someone insults you, that is food, as long as you know how to digest and assimilate it," unquote. I quote him again, "If you knew how to do it, you could find nourishment in everything, even in the insults of someone who vomits his hate and aggressiveness onto you. Therefore, part of the energy, which is both energy and matter, furnished by the different foods, must not be consumed. It must instead be saved so it can be refined. We thus develop an autonomous inner structure, and life can no longer give us orders. For crystallization to take place, the substance we draw from the three foods, the prana contained in inhaled air, food, and the impressions which come to us, should not be used solely to function," unquote. It should be contained and consumed. And I do that by not identifying with external forces. Madame de Saltzman says, an attention that resists surrounding influences and does not let itself deteriorate. Well, how does attention deteriorate? By identification, by interfering with incoming impressions. Again, I'm quoting from Madame de Saltzman so that we get an idea of the scale of this thing that we're involved with. Quote, we do not understand the moment of receiving an impression and why it is so important. We need to be present because it is the shock of the impression that drives us. If there is nobody here at the moment an impression is received, I react automatically, blindly, passively, and I am lost in the reaction, unquote. And now I'm going to quote from P.D. Ouspensky. It's his recollection of a talk by Mr. Gurdjieff. I'm quoting, all the substances necessary for the maintenance of the life of the organism, for psychic work, for the higher functions of consciousness, and the growth of the higher bodies are produced by the organism from the food which enters it from outside. The human organism receives three kinds of food. 1, the ordinary food we eat. 2, the air we breathe. 3, our impressions. Without impressions, a man cannot live a single moment. If the flow of impressions were to be stopped in some way, the organism would immediately die. The flow of impressions coming to us from outside is like a driving belt. The principal motor for us is nature, the surrounding world. Nature transmits to us through our impressions the energy by which we live. If the inflow of this energy is arrested, our machine will immediately stop working. Thus, of the three kinds of food, the most important for us is impressions. The three kinds of food produce the substances necessary not only for the maintenance of life, but also for the creation and growth of higher bodies, unquote. And now I'm going to read a quote from Maurice Nicole from Psychological Commentaries on the teachings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. Quote, organic life on Earth plays a critical role in the evolution of the planet. The role of organic life in the structure of the Earth's surface was indisputable. For the Earth to evolve, it must be able to receive influences from higher levels. Like all living creatures, humanity's role on Earth is to transform energies, principally from the sun and the planetary world. Gurdjieff considered living bodies, and especially the human body, as instruments for the accumulation and development of energies. The human body is uniquely designed to contain and foster the development on Earth of a cosmically very high order of energy that no other creature on Earth is capable of developing, unquote. So now, if you wish to work, please stand as I am doing, both feet on the ground, erect posture. Conscious placement of attention at the solar plexus and abdominal region, and place your hand on your abdomen so that you can maintain some gravitational sensation there and don't get pulled out of your place by thought or emotion. Now sense the breath. Inhalation, say to yourself, I at the solar plexus. On the exhalation, say am. And allow the am to radiate throughout the entire structure. That radiation is a finer energy extracted from air. On the inhalation, I. On the exhalation, am. And sense that radiation of the breath. and keep the body relaxed. And stay quiet now. And just do the I am exercise. I on the inhalation at the solar plexus. And radiate. Try to sense this refined energy, which is food for God. And breathe through the nostrils. Both feet on the floor. Erect posture. Conscious placement of attention at the abdomen. Sensing the breath. I am. And with eyes wide open, gaze without focusing on any one thing. Take in the whole of your atmosphere, the room you're in, the force field which surrounds the body. Take in 180 degrees, the whole space you're in. Zen Buddhism calls this choiceless awareness. Second stage, self-remembering. 75% of the intention is inside the body, present, conscious of the body. 25% of the attention is on the surrounding atmosphere and the space I am here in. I am present to the divine. I am being fed. I am feeding the divine in return. The law of reciprocal maintenance. Be seated. I'm going to stop there for a moment and see if there are questions, comments, corrections, anything from those who are listening to the speaker that they want to say now. I will be quiet and wait.
My ego wants to know if this practice of building a second body helps my physical body.
Thank you. Yogi Ram Kumar. When I engage the practice of presence, engage the breath and impressions consciously, the physical body creates a much higher volume of quality energy. In order to practice self-remembering and self-observation, it requires a level of energy beyond my ordinary output. The body is capable of a much greater output of energy if I'm consciously in the body and working with the body as a team. The body is capable of doing this, acting as a transformational instrument, even when in poor health, but it's much healthier when I am remembering myself engaged in practices like conscious eating, conscious exercise, conscious sensation. There is a level of health which can be reached through this practice, and there's a level of energy which becomes available to me, which is unusual, which is more than the normal mammal world energy of people. People are walking dead. They live in the past. Madame de Salzman was 92 years old. She was conducting a movements class. And one of the participants commented, "Madame, you have more energy than any of us, and we're 3 times our age. How is that possible?" Her answer was, quote, "I eat my negativity," unquote. Mr. Lee was on a plane with his students going to India to meet with Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar. And there was a lot of activity and chatter and nervousness, etc. And Mr. Lee was sitting very quietly and calmly. And one of his students asked him, Mr. Lee, how is it that you remain unaffected and relaxed? He said, quote, I eat my mind, unquote. The body creates a food which can transform not only the body because it begins to operate at its highest function, but the being. And of course, the body dies. It gets old, it gets weak, and it sickens. And Don Juan's, the four great enemies of the man of knowledge, the fourth one was old age. When I get old, the urge is to sit down and stop, lay down, stop working. If I have practiced and have great urgency, I can continue to work through the deterioration of the body. So one wants to keep a healthy physical body, but at some point it becomes sick. And I can still work up to and through the point of death. I wish to die consciously. One of my prayers every morning is, beloved Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, please let your name be my last breath. I wish to be conscious through the death process so I can work even when the body is dying. But you see, it's not just about the health of the physical body, although that's important. Respond, please.
That's very helpful.
Thank you, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar.
Thank you.
You were talking about resisting surrounding influences. And the strongest ones, in my experience, are around fear and desire. For example, money, food, and sex.
Join the crowd.
To really get grounded in this consideration for me of working with impressions, that's where it goes on a gross level. So what does it mean to not identify with those influences as opposed to pushing them away or suppressing them?
Right. Thank you, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar. So there is ordinary life. And in ordinary life, I have certain obligations and responsibilities. I have to pay the rent. I have to put food on the table. And then there's fear. And the world we live in is a fear-driven world. The human reality as it exists, the mammal world, the mechanical world, is a fear-based world. How can I meet my obligations and responsibilities and see them as an objective phenomenon? I have my part to do. I do my work. And at the same time, I trust that conscience, the love of God, which is in me as conscience, will guide me. And I can stay relaxed and not identified with the bills that come in. Simply using my intelligence, my ordinary mammal intelligence, but also my higher intelligence, which solves problems that the ordinary intelligence can't solve. The work teaches that I have two higher centers, higher emotional center, higher intellectual center. The language of higher intellectual center is intuition. The language of higher emotional center is inspiration. And when inspiration and intuition are in play, when I'm present in the body and conscious, watching, feeling, breathing, I get solutions to problems that don't come from my ordinary mind. Much of the poetry that I've written in the two books on self-observation and self-remembering were written in that state. I was given understanding that was beyond my ordinary understanding. So the more I learn to trust being still inside and letting the wisdom which is available to all beings come to me. Wisdom doesn't come from me, it comes to me. And that wisdom comes in the form of inspiration and intuition and insight, which is both of them acting together. I am able to do more, be more, see more, and accomplish more than if I am lost in thought and emotion, if I'm identified with my fear. So this work teaches me to trust stillness, to be still inside, to be actively still, and let the fear come through me and not respond. Let the thought come through me and not respond, and wait, and it will settle itself. And I will be given help. And I use the name of Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar in this school because that summons the help from a very high source. And I get inspiration and intuition then. If I don't interfere with the impressions, Newtonian physics, the first law of energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transformed. There's only one source of energy, which is the love of God, and it's neither created nor destroyed. It can be transformed. It can be downloaded into the body, and the body uploads, takes the energy from above and the energy from below, from the earth. And if I'm present as the third force, attention, conscious attention, those two forces blend and create a whole different third force, which I call loving kindness and forgiveness. The law of transference means that if fear arises or energy from outside comes in and there's a reaction and I don't respond, that energy has to give itself up to attention, and attention is fed. If the energy comes in or arises from within me and I identify, that identification steals the energy of attention and there's a negative transference. I lose energy, I lose my attention. If I stay actively still, that energy has to be transferred to attention and attention grows stronger. So when I eat the emotion, there's a positive exchange and the energy comes to me, in which case there are no such things as negative emotions. All emotions are positive when I eat them. A negative emotion is any emotion I identify with. If I don't identify, there's only positive emotion because there's a positive transfer of energy. The attention is fed. Respond.
Eating the emotion, are you saying that that's a matter of being with that impression and letting it move through the body without doing anything about it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a matter of allowing it, accepting it, being grateful for it. Mr. Gurdjieff's great aphorism on the study house wall, which is changing my life as we speak and will change my life, I hope, for the rest of my life, is we come here having already understood the need for work on oneself, only on oneself. Therefore, thank everyone who gives you the opportunity. And that means that whatever happens or arises in my life, I can feel gratitude because it's my opportunity to feed and to serve the love of God, which is a great honor. Gratitude is the only attitude which is sensible, and the practice of loving kindness is the only sensible response to the hate that the world is being bathed in and the fear the world is being gazed in. What is freedom? The work teaches that real freedom is freedom from identification. It's the freedom to serve conscience. It's the freedom to serve the law of reciprocal maintenance. It's the freedom to forgive and the freedom to be kind. That's what freedom is. I've said enough. I pray that nobody has been harmed by this talk. Perhaps there has been something useful. One never knows, but it's been helpful to me. And with all my heart, I thank you. So let's take a moment just to be quiet together, just to be thankful together for just a moment, to sense this presence from on high. which radiates its love and animates this life. I thank you so much for your help and your attention. God bless you. I love you. Yo-Yo Ramsrat, come on.